Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Chess4Life Spotlight, where we meet amazing individuals from around the world, discovering their connections with chess and using the game of chess to positively impact the world, especially their communities. I'm your host, Elliott Neff, National Master, founder of Chess4Life, and author of A Pawn's Journey, Transforming Lives One Move at a Time. With me today is Sandy Staab, an amazing gentleman who worked for decades in the technology programming field and then shifted. He now runs a ranch out in the areas of Idaho where people can come and stay. He uses the game of chess to impact his community and has been a close connection with chess for many, many years. We're really excited today to have you on the show, Sandy. Welcome to the Chess4Life Spotlight.
Thanks, Elliott.
Hey, it's a pleasure. So as we jump into this, before we get into the chess connections and all your background with that, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself? You know, where you were from, where you grew up, and maybe at this point, what you're focused on at this stage in your life.
Okay. I was a child of the atom bomb. My parents were both working on the atom bomb when they met each other, and they had me. So I'm kind of radioactive now. And we grew up in Livermore, which is a small town in California where the Livermore Lawrence Lab is where my dad worked. And so it's kind of a nerdy town. And we had good chess players there. And we also had lots of math and science and computer science. I got into computers very early, working on the largest computer system in the world, the Octopus system at the Lawrence Livermore Lab. And so I kind of got oriented that way. But my father lost all his money about the time I graduated from high school. So I had no ticket to college. So I decided to go into the Navy to get myself through college. And so I enrolled in a nuclear power program, the Navy, and I became a submariner and worked on turning the screw. And that was my job for 6 years, and traveled the world a bit and got to live in Hawaii and all kinds of fun things like that. And then after that, I went and aimed my sights at UC Berkeley, which is where all my friends went. And even though I was a pretty hardcore conservative, I was there at Berkeley, and it's pretty funny. People interview me, think I'm some net called liberal or something, but I'm not. And so it kind of fools people. But anyway, I got through that, and then Microsoft looked at me and said, you know, we like you. And so I got hired at Microsoft because I bought a computer on the submarine with programming and assembly language from memory. You know, I was able to write down code and play with things at the bit level. So that's something Microsoft was looking for at the time. And I got hired into one of the top teams that did the user interface to Windows NT. Actually, Windows OS 2 was first. And then I got drafted into the NT program. And then I invented a DLL a library that supported a special data exchange that got me working on the Windows system side. And then I eventually transitioned to apps. I had a hard disk crash, and I really got in big trouble for that. So I had to go out of systems into apps, and I worked on Messenger and several other products you never heard of that were a lot of fun. And I loved doing what I did. I got married out of college, had 2 kids, and that went pretty well till about and then for Y2K is why I bought this ranch. I had lots of money, and I thought, you know, hey, I feel responsible for my family, and I should give an option in case something goes crazy. And I didn't think it would, but I found this fantastic ranch, 160 acres. You can look at it online. It's called lifewaterranch.com. It's my website. I love to share it because it's just more than I can handle, and it's a lot of fun. It's just a beautiful place. We have 6 head of cattle, and we keep growing of Scottish Highlander cattle. Now, we used to be a kind of a vacation rental, and we would have families over mostly in the summer that would stay for weeks, and I would move out, and they would live in my home. And I have a second home here, but that's occupied by a caretaker. So being a bachelor, this happened in 2012. My wife left me, and by 2016 it was over, and I was alone. And so that's what I did, was rent out my house. And then in let's see, where we at? So I retired from Microsoft in '07, and my daughter and wife moved out here in 2010. My daughter finished high school here with a GED. My son went to college at New St. Andrews College in Moscow, and he's doing very well. He's a programmer as well, and he's actually running a whole company by himself and doing kind of like you, and he's very successful. And my daughter's doing well as well. She just moved to Coeur d'Alene from Everett, so she's in the area. And so the single life was okay, but I was a bit lonely. And it turned out that back in, let's see, I guess about 2018 or so, a girl I knew in the Navy when I was at Bremerton, in the shipyard with the Navy, we met briefly, and we weren't thinking of marriage or anything. We were just good friends. And she was at Chess4Life. She had several boys that she was raising as a nanny, and was taking them through a tournament at Chess4Life. And she saw this article on one of your newsletters about me in Idaho. And that enabled her to find me. She didn't know where I was, and she just looked for Sandy Staab and chess, and she found my sandythechessguy.com website, which I guess it's not .com, it's a blog. But anyway, you'll find it if you look for Sandy the Chess Guy. And she found my contact information. We got together, and we rapidly became really special friends. And we decided, it's better to be together than apart. So we are now married, and now we can't rent the house out anymore because she's got a lot of stuff, and she likes a home, and she doesn't want to leave. So we do bed and breakfast kind of stuff. She's actually a gourmet chef. She's cooking all kinds of stuff right up now for Christmas. So she treats me very well. I'm a very lucky man to have her. And so that was all due to Chess4Life. I would never have found her if it wasn't for your newsletter. But I thought that was cool to share.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
Wow.
But,
So Sandy, this is fascinating. You've covered a lot of ground really fast, and even shared things that, though we connected years ago also, as you mentioned, at Chess4Life, and through, I had no idea that there were certain connections like this, where a Chess4Life newsletter led you to your current spouse, or her to you. That's really fascinating. And I want to take a sec here, because you mentioned something, and you passed right over it in your history, and I had no idea. But basically, both your parents were involved in the A-bomb development. You mentioned, So they were both.
Yeah, they were on the Manhattan Project, but it was after the Manhattan Project. They were testing nuclear weapons and bombs over in Nevada. My mom was an intelligence secretary in the Army, and my dad was a physicist. So.
Got you. Wow. So then you grew up with parents who were obviously in the STEM space, right? And you went into computer programming and these kind of elements. Let's take a sec now, before we get back, and we can talk more about the ranch and these things. It's so fascinating because you've done some chess there. I've had the joy of going to your ranch one time. And now you mentioned a gourmet cook on staff too. I might need to come back here sooner. But let's take a sec here and segue into, so when did chess enter your life? When did you discover the game? And how far do you go into chess yourself personally, before we talk about what you've done to serve communities with it?
Sure. So at 5 years old, my dad gave me a chess set and 2 books for Christmas. And those 2 books, one was a George Koltnowski book, and one was a Chess Brilliancy book. And he taught me how to play, and we played. Of course, he'd always wipe me out, but I kept reading those books. And by the time I was 10, I think it was 10, I finally beat him. And by the time I was 14, he didn't want to play me anymore. I loved chess. I just loved it. It especially, I don't know, it reveals the character of the person you're playing if you're both good enough. It starts to show their character flaws and their character strengths and how they think. And it was fascinating to me that I could get to know someone through a game. Now, there's no game like it. And so I tried to become a master. That was one of my goals as a teenager. I went to the California Junior Chess Championship, and I ended up in the middle of the pack somewhere. But I remember that was one of your questions that you gave me ahead of time was, what was one of the most interesting chess experiences I ever had. I was coming in there and warming up and trying to practice my knight, bishop, king, checkmate, force checkmate, and trying to remember how that worked. And this little 10-year-old kid comes up and shows off and shows me how to do it in 10 seconds, and I'm like, okay. We ended up getting paired up at about the third round, and we were both just bent on beating each other. And so we were very close and tied, and he touched the wrong piece, and there was no good move. And he spent half an hour, used up all his time trying to find that move. There was no way out. He was going to lose a piece. And then he jumped up and smashed all the pieces aside on the floor and ran out crying. And I was
Oh dear. Oh dear. What an example of poor sportsmanship there, right?
Yeah.
And for those listening who might be new to competition in chess, what we're referring to here is a scenario in a chess game where there's a rule that if you touch a piece, you must move that piece as long as it's legal to do so, as long as it doesn't, leave your own king in check or something. And so there's dramatic consequences. And it's, in fact, one of the things that chess can help young students in particular develop is this aspect of patience. Because if you react on impulse, right, and just touch the first piece that you're thinking about moving, and then suddenly realize, wait, that might not be a good move, well, you're stuck. Mm-hmm. Now you've got to move that piece somewhere. And so you experience that. And something you mentioned just here is an aspect I've not heard that often. We talk about the benefits of chess, but you brought out an interesting aspect that I would say I've experienced myself, but don't often talk about. And that is, you mentioned how playing chess with someone can be quite an opportunity to discover someone's character. And that is fascinating, because now as I reflect upon that, when we're talking, of course, not speed chess games, but long games, when you're playing with someone over a period of time, there is much that could come out, right? Because the pressures of the game, what happens to a person when pressure is applied, right? They say that those kind of things reveal character. And that's what I think you're alluding to here. Right? The pressure of a position where, what do you do when you make a move and you realize it was a mistake and you're getting in a worse position? How do you handle that pressure? How do you handle it if you feel like you're about to win and you get excited? Are you able to control your emotions to ensure that you still play the best moves and don't let your excitement to cloud and become overconfident? And even more critically, I believe, when you win, do you win with grace and consideration for the person you just sparred with? Or do you, celebrate without regard to their feelings? And so there's all these different aspects. I'm so glad you mentioned that, Sandy, bringing that piece out, because you're right. I've also had that
very memorable game.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had that experience too, where you play a long game, which again, for non-competition chess players at the national championships, it is not unusual to have games last 3 or 4 hours with a single opponent for a single game. And so you're spending a lot of time just a few feet from each other across the board. And then afterwards, it's common in chess events to even discuss that game afterwards with someone. And so it's quite some connections that you can make that way. So thanks for bringing up that piece. Well, let's you said you had a dream of, or your goal at one point was to become a master. How far did you end up progressing in chess?
I got to expert level. I did not quite get to master. I went to several tournaments when I was about 17, and I hit that level where you get into the psychological part of the game and the intense, the need for will to win. It takes an incredible will to endure those long games against really good opponents. And became too much for me. I thought, I'm not enjoying this game anymore. Well, I just want to enjoy a good game. And so I've since not even tried to get that good anymore. It's too high a level. And so I kind of abandoned the game for a while. It was funny, during my Navy years, I had a good friend that would set me up, kind of hustle people. They'd set people up to think, this guy's pretty good, but you can beat him, and then I'd slaughter them, and then they'd go, oh, man. So we just had fun with that. But, it's very different than playing someone who really knows what they're doing. And then, back in, I think it was around 2000 that I met, what was his name? I met one of your chess coaches, and he played me a casual game and didn't know that I knew chess as well as I did. And I beat him, and he was like, you can't do that. I'm a chess coach, So he introduced me to you, and I started to work for you for a few years in the 2000s. And I really benefited from your curriculum. I learned so much about how to teach chess way faster than how I learned, because I just went over master game after master game after master game, and kind of just, I read some books, but it was very slow to figure out all these simple tricks that you found. And I've kind of grown on that. I've taken what you taught me and I think improved on it a little bit here and there. And I also love the cultural aspect of chess. I love the social aspect of chess. Getting kids to, deal with winning and losing, getting kids to enjoy really thinking hard. And that is so great. And the character building.
So Sandy, I appreciate, this bringing me back to how you got involved in chess coaching, right? We crossed paths at a certain point. You came part-time helping coach kids. And I appreciate how you said you learned so much, even just by joining our team at the time in those early 2000s, that period. But let's segue here a little bit into what it was that led to you, impacting youth and doing that. What benefits did you see chess doing for kids, and where have you taken that? Because obviously you've been in Idaho now for some time, and you've served that community. I've seen that in various emails and newsletters, and that was one of the reasons we touched base. Is we like to highlight how is chess being a vehicle used to positively impact, right, their communities. So share a little bit about that journey into the benefits of chess that you've seen and what you've now done to bring those benefits to your community.
Well, you were an excellent example of character, of someone who cared about kids and people. And when I went to that tournament you had in Washington State Championship, and there's 1,500 kids or something. And I was like, wow, what an impact, you can make on kids. And so when I moved to Idaho, and especially when I was single, I just wanted something to do. And I thought, I need to reach out and teach kids chess. It's just something I love to do, because kids don't get much of a father figure. It's actually, most of the teachers in school are female, and you get very little male camaraderie and coaching and mentoring that happens in a kid's life. If their father isn't much in their life, they get very little masculine input. And I think it's extremely important, just being a role model, just being there to teach them how to think, how to fight, how to control their emotions, and all that stuff is great. And so I've even had some students tell me, because I went and played chess under you, I learned how to think ahead, and I made decisions in life based on thinking ahead, and it changed my life. And I now am successful here or whatever there, and because of chess. So I've had personal experience with kids whose lives were changed through chess.
That's awesome. Let's take a moment there. Can you give, without of course sharing identities and such, an example of where you've seen, where someone has shared, hey, this has changed my life? And can you give a more specific example, perhaps?
Well, the one I'm thinking of is a girl that that I taught, I think, when she was about 9. And she was a student off and on for several years. And she was actually one of the best. She won one of the tournaments that I did. I don't know if she won first place, but she was very close on the top 3 and got, an award and stuff. And that when she got that award is when she told me and everybody that, she was thankful that I taught her chess. I don't know much about where she's gone, except I think she's gone to college and she's probably raising a family now, doing fine. But it wasn't anything dramatic, but she knew how to think deeper about life's choices. And that's about as specific as I can get.
Yeah, well, appreciate that. So share a bit more about the community there, right? I've seen you reach out to various groups in the community, from schools to organizations, putting on events just to help youth as much as possible. Can you share a bit more about that work for us?
I started going to the schools in the area, and I was warmly received, and they loved it, and they gave me the time and the place to be able to do a good job. And I've built a good reputation from that, and so I have that going for me. And maybe someday I'll get back into the public schools. It's more difficult. But then I got this idea of doing an annual tournament, because I think a tournament brings it all together. And I like, when I do my classes, by the end of the class, I like to do a mini tournament if I can, or even a chess ladder. But a tournament's nice because you get clocks in action, you get writing your moves down in action, you get all the experience of the competition. And when a kid goes through a real tournament and sees round by round how they're approaching and how they're doing, and seeing the competition for the top, it's really exciting. And they realize how fun this is to have this big tournament. So I did an annual tournament every year. And we had a private school that hosted it, and it worked out great. And we'd have 50 to 80 people. And eventually we started raising good money to get some decent prizes to start to motivate the kids to really work hard. And then COVID came and kind of shut everything down, because I really refused to do any chess with masks on. I thought that was just so counter to the social aspect of the game. And I didn't think COVID was anything that a mask would change. So that pretty much shut me down. But then COVID actually ended up making chess so popular online, and so many people came into the game. Now it's a lot easier to get kids interested in teaching. So I'm back at it again, and I found a great venue. We're going to have another tournament in January, and I usually do it at the Christmas period of time. And now I think I'm going to be able to get some sponsors where we're going to be able to start to get prizes, prize funds in the 1,000 level instead of the hundreds level, and start to really make kids see you can make this worthwhile to you to learn and get better.
That's awesome. So what are the benefits or skills that you primarily see that chess helps develop in these youth?
Judgment. It does develop character, especially in a social session. I don't think chess online is nearly as valuable as chess physically with someone. You want to see their face. You want to know how are they. You can see the stress in them, or the comfort in them, or whatever the attitudes. And shaking hands is extremely important with me. It's like you need to be connected to a person, or your life is kind of pointless. And I think relationships.
And let me interrupt you there just for one sec to clarify for those again who are listening and may not be as experienced in the chess world. When you say shaking hands, right? I just want to clarify that what we mean by that is in tournament competitions, part of the etiquette of playing chess is to wish your opponent good luck or good game and shake hands before every game and after every game. It's also part of good etiquette and sportsmanship. You always would shake hands afterwards and say, thank you for the game, or well played, or something. And of course, during the time of COVID, some accommodations were made for people who were concerned about it, such as, fist bumps and virtual shakes and stuff like this. But for the culture of chess, wanted to clarify that for our audience. what we're referring to when
Yeah.
you say shake hands. It's like, huh? I'm playing chess. Yes, that's part of it. So back to that, and apologies for the interruption there, but you're talking about, these benefits of the in-person social connection, right? Connecting with someone. It's not just a cerebral activity, it's a community social activity. So,
Right.
yeah, if you could expound on that a bit more
I've
and these other
even found,
benefits.
I've even found teaching people, kids how to use the clock. They're so used to the computer doing the clock for them. They don't even think about it. And it's, time is passing and you better hit that button or it's going to cost you.
Yep.
And then, but the connection, the social connection, both in a tournament and one-on-one and with a coach. I mean, I love playing with, first graders that just want to handle the pieces and move them around. And it's fine, and I can move a piece and they can move a piece. And we're on an equal level that normally you don't get between a stranger adult and a little kid,
Right.
So as I get in my older years, I find that I've had great success, I've had great loss, and I've realized that the thing that counts at the end of your life is really the relationships you have. If you don't have good relationships, you might have all the money in the world, you might be, you're not going to be happy. And so I just love teaching kids chess and playing with them. And of course, it's fun to win most of the time, but it's really fun to teach them and watch them improve. And because I haven't, worked very hard at it, my rating level is probably around 1600 at my best nowadays. And they can beat me. They actually can beat me if I'm not paying attention, and they have a chance, and that's great. And I always play my best move, and they say I'm always going to play my best move. So if you beat me, you really beat me.
Yeah, that's awesome. So giving these benefits to the kids, right? The critical thinking skills, the problem solving skills, as you mentioned, judgment, right? Making choices and living with those consequences and doing your best to evaluate your choices, not just react. All of these benefits. We also talk at Chess4Life about these mindsets of success, right? The win, draw, or learn attitude. Meaning, are you willing to embrace losing in order to get better, or do you shy away and are you afraid of the pain of losing and therefore miss out on the benefits that come from embracing this growth mindset? So we talk about these and our 10 life skills that we talk about at Chess4Life. Which one stands out to you as like a key one that resonates with you?
You listed them on the email. I'm trying to remember what you had listed.
And I know I emailed it over, but I'll just share them here also for our audience to be aware of these.
Okay.
We start with the win, draw, or learn, and then we move to the can-do attitude, meaning your attitude of if you think you can, you probably can, and if you think you can't, well, you definitely can't because you won't try. So it's the mindset again, and this element of always improve. This element of better together, right? Individual pieces of greater strengths and weaknesses, but you don't look down upon each other. Instead, you value the unique abilities of every piece and every person and work together. And then goal setting, of course, which comes right out of chess, setting a goal and how to achieve it, planning, sportsmanship, healthy habits, focus, respect. Those are some of our key life skills that we talk about and would love to hear from your experience, what things stand out to you from your life and from your chess?
I think respect stands out to me one of the highest. Respect for a person, who they are, whether they're better than you or worse than you. That is what this world kind of needs. More than success is something I've had, and it's like I've, disciplined myself and gone to the point where I've succeeded, and then I have lost all that at this point, and not all of it, but in going through that, I've kind of realized that sometimes your goals, your vision of what success is not really happiness. It doesn't really bring you happy. Money isn't gonna make you happy, and there's other goals, of loving your neighbor, of knowing people, of helping others, I think that has the higher amount of happiness. And that's what I love to do what I love to do. And so I know when you love to do what you do, you're going to do well. And I think that's what I try to teach my kids. Just do what you love to do and do it as good as you can.
That's awesome. Thank you, Sandy, for that. So we've got a little bit of time to wrap up here. I've got a couple of key questions I like to end on, but right before that, are you up for a quick chess challenge game with me?
Okay, bring it on, buddy.
We like to say, hey, chess is the medium we're using. It's nice to enjoy the game, meet people, play together. And so thank you for being willing to do this. Let me send you a challenge over Lee Chess here, which is the platform we'll be using. We're going to be playing a 5-minute game here. So 5 minutes per side to make all our moves. And if we don't make them in that time, well, the other person gets to win that match. And I love to win, draw, and learn.
Maybe I can take the recording of this game and show my students.
Hey, you'd be welcome to. And I'm going to share my screen so that people who are watching this video can actually follow along, and maybe we can even share the link later. So excited to see what happens here. Let's have fun. And then we'll come back for a couple final questions. And by the way, in the meantime, everyone, please remember to like and subscribe in order to not miss out on other very fascinating stories of people transforming their communities through the game of chess. So here goes the challenge. And I'm going to share my screen. Here we are. And there's the game. Oh, gave me the light pieces. So have fun, Sandy. I might do some talking as we go. And for those who don't play a lot of chess, it's pretty standard for us to target these center 4 squares, because those squares tend to be from where you can attack anywhere. And so if you're new to the game of chess, a couple principles here you'll also see is we're developing the pieces on this back row. We're bringing them forward like we talked about with Better Together and this teamwork concept, right? You need that team working together. So here I have a knight in the middle and a bishop next to it. And these other pieces are getting ready to come out all towards the middle for the time being. Now, if you're watching, notice this threat against my bishop. I certainly don't want to lose that bishop. So I got to make a choice about where to put it. What are we going to do? In this case, I'm just choosing to retreat. So here we are. We've got a battle underway. And that's a very important principle here is, when you see a good move or you have a plan, it's very important to look at the whole picture. So I could have kept bringing out other pieces, but then there was a threat on my bishop I had to take care of. You see, so taking that time to think about what is going on in the position, what are the advantages, what are the threats, what can I do? Here I do the special move castling, gets my king behind this pawn shield, lets my rook move towards the middle. We're just slowly improving each piece, looking for opportunities. So let's see what continues here. Okay, in this case, I'm going to advance a pawn, which can be risky, actually, because it can open up my king a little bit. At the same time, it's creating a threat on Sandy's knight here in the middle. So where is he going to move that knight? And he's retreated it, which would obviously needed to move, otherwise my pawn would take it. And now it's my turn to figure out where do I want to go next. So I got to think ahead. Where are these pieces going? Okay, I think what we're going to do is we're just going to keep on bringing out our pieces. Do this one next. And again, I'm just thinking through my moves here, what we're doing and where our pieces are going. And if you're watching this game, you'll notice that every piece on my back row has now moved at least once. And that's part of the goal is I try to move each of them to a better position, move them, advance them a little bit forward. And so we slowly move forward and start to look for where do we attack? Because Sandy is a good player, right? He mentioned he reached the expert level, which is the level right below master. And that is a significant accomplishment, being able to get to that level of play. So here we continue to advance forward. Keep pushing up.
You're tying me up. Oh boy. What can I do here? I don't like to leave my king with my knight, but I gotta get him out of trouble. So
yeah, the knight was under pressure, wasn't it?
mhm.
And now I have to think, what do I want to do, right? I've got some choices. Where shall we go?
You pretty much got me. You're going for the king here. Okay.
You're watching this. Yes, my queen is lined up with the king. I'm targeting this pawn. And notice how there's a second attacker, which means I could bring my queen. Oh,
I missed the mate threat.
we had two pieces lined up. I was expecting moving the pawn just to try to block my attack. But there we go. Good game, Sandy. Virtual handshakes. We're on Zoom here.
Quick death.
Thank you for playing that. And you know, for our audience too, right? Every game we play is an opportunity to win, draw, or learn. You know, and what's fascinating about chess is we just played a game here together. And in this game, I've played 10,000 plus games. In the first 10 moves, we were in a position I had never experienced in my life.
Yeah.
And that's what's fascinating about the game of chess, is the number of possibilities makes it very interesting every time you play it. Plus, you're gaining experience and learning these skills, learning from what you do, learning how to improve it, how to get better. And so thank you for playing that, Sandy. And now back to our final questions before we wrap up here. I always like to ask these kind of things. So first one, what's your next big goal you would like to accomplish in the next, let's say 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is? What would be a big objective of yours?
Well, I don't know. There's a lot of aspects to that. I want to keep teaching chess and improve on that, but that's not my only focus. This ranch I have is a huge potential, and I'm trying to figure out how to use that in a way that's the most beneficial to myself and other people. And because we have a pool and a hot tub and we have, a pool table and all kinds of fun stuff that families really enjoy. And I love sharing this with families. So I've been trying to figure out how to make that work while being married. And we don't have a lot of money to build another house, and we have a house, but it's not quite what my wife likes. And so we're trying to figure out.
So you're still figuring out your next. You're still figuring out your next big goal here. And maybe it has something to do with the chess tournament on this ranch and something like that. Who knows? But and a final question for our audience. That I just love to, you have a lot of years experience in this tech world, the STEM field, using chess, playing chess, impacting communities, having a ranch, what a diverse background where many people don't have that level of diversity. If you look back now across your years and imagine yourself as a young person, let's say college, high school, college, just coming out, what kind of advice would you give your younger self?
I would say, take the road less traveled. Don't necessarily go right into college because all your friends are. I found from my experience, all the college I went through didn't really do much for me except get me in the door to a company that was very successful. But it's not that college is worthless. It's just know what you want to do before you go to college. I think that's really important. Otherwise, you're going to waste your time in college. You want to know what you're doing. There's so many people. When I was in junior college, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I was aiming on that, and I was getting straight A's and working straight toward my goal of getting into Berkeley, getting through Berkeley, and then getting a really fun job. And I knew the area that I was good in and what I like to do. And a lot of people there were like, they didn't know what to do. And they would just take random classes and kind of paying half attention and wasting their time. I would say, get out, do some work, and get some diverse experience, and travel is really good. Travel is one of the most amazing things because you will increase your IQ with travel, and you will get a perspective you won't get if you don't travel. So if you're young and you're right out of high school or something, if you can get a job that's going to teach you something new and challenge you, and maybe at the same time if you get some travel in, I think that's a great way to start. And then once you get your feet on the ground and know what you like to do and what you want to do what you love, and you will succeed.
Well, that's awesome, Sandy. Thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you for your work impacting the communities there. And I would love to share some links with our audience so they could follow along with the work that you're doing in that area. So glad to have you on it once again, Sandy. Everybody, feel free to follow along for our next episode. And we hope you have a wonderful time as we share more stories of chess being the vehicle for positively impacting individuals, communities, and even our world.
Thank you, Elliott.